Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
I'm Charisma. Welcome back, guys.
Hello, Charisma.
Hello, Amari.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right myself.
Good.
Yeah, another episode of 28 Days and Beyond.
Yes, we are here.
Yep.
And we're going to be putting forth lots of knowledge and things.
Is that, what's the motion? Okay, thank you. Gotcha, I'll leave that one to you. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about technology, and
Yep.
specifically technology in the Black community. I'm happy that we're talking about this because what I will say is that a lot of times as it pertains to technology right now, mostly because you see so many young people like on their phones sometimes when they
Twitter
shouldn't
fingers.
be,
Yeah,
you know. You see the thumb motion, and it's like every time there's a minute to just, be, you see so many young people just, immersed in some form of technology.
Is it only the young people?
No, you know what? Actually,
you don't find
it's
yourself
not.
reaching for the phone
It's
there?
not.
Yeah.
But you know what I do?
What's that?
Like when I'm doing things that are important, much like 28 Days and Beyond.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't have my phone with me.
Your phone's ringing.
So like
Your phone's ringing.
it's but like family dinners, or if you're someplace where you should be paying attention, just separating yourself.
Certainly.
But the flip side of that is that technology is advancing, and there are a lot of awesome things that we are now privy to with technology.
Yes.
And I think there's still a lot to learn, especially a lot for us to learn. What are your thoughts?
Well, one, technology is, for me, for a long time, was very intimidating, right? I mean,
Why?
I know, in terms of like the usability of whatever, computers or phones or whatever have you, but actually, breaking that open and going behind the scenes, that stuff is like, zeros.
So
and
you
ones,
never
zeros
played
and
Oregon
ones.
Trail back in the day?
Yeah, of course I did.
Okay,
but I'm
just
saying,
checking.
but exactly. But if you ask me how do they make
Oregon
Trail
Trail,
work,
that's
and I'm like,
something
I have no
totally
idea, and I'm not
different.
interested in it. You know what I mean?
See, I've always been interested, but it's just never, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder why I never
Yeah.
studied more.
So a few years ago, actually about a little bit over a year ago, I went down the rabbit hole.
That was so official.
Yeah,
I went down.
say exactly,
Yeah.
right? It's hard-hitting reporting here
Yes,
on
it is.
28 Days and Beyond. But one of the things that happened was because I started with this question, what is the internet? Like, what actually is it, right? You're on Wi-Fi, how does that work? And then started like, how do things like remote controls work? Things like that. You know what the internet is?
What?
Do you know what the
I
internet?
don't, and I'm waiting for you to tell me.
Wires. It's anticlimactic, right?
It really was.
It's a series of wires, right? You want to send an email to someone in, the Ivory Coast. That actually, there's a long history, but there's a wire that runs under the ocean, literally.
Really?
That will connect, but the fact is that it's the same wires that were occupied by the telephone lines back. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So, but they literally run the length of the ocean. Now they wouldn't go to the Ivory Coast, and there's a reason, because if you look at the internet map, they'll go to places that were like colonial centers. So they'll go to metropolis. So they'll go to London, France. So and then when you look at the map around Africa, it gets real thin.
Yeah.
So they'll hit on maybe Ghana or Lagos, then they'll go down to South Africa, but. It's a whole nother conversation for another time, but the point is, technology is all around us. Someone is building our future for us.
Yes.
Are we building a future for ourselves?
We should be.
Exactly.
And that's what our guest today is going to talk about.
See how I did that?
Yes, that was
Call
good.
me Scottie Pippen, because I just gave you the ill alley-oop. What?
You did.
Go ahead, MJ. Go
All
ahead,
right,
MJ.
all
Do
right.
your thing.
Well, our
Not
guest
Michael
today,
Jackson, Michael Jordan.
I knew who you were
Yes,
talking
okay, thank
about.
you.
I'm not going to stick my tongue out and go,
Yeah,
but,
I appreciate
or maybe
that.
I will.
Thank you. Yeah, right.
But our guest today is actually one of my oldest, dearest friends.
Oh, is
His
that
name
right?
is, yes, Jason Barbour. And he's going to be talking to us about all things technology.
That's what's
so
up.
we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond and technology right after this.
Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. We're joined now by Jason Barbour. How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I run a digital marketing agency that's focused on small businesses. And, we do a lot of web design, mostly, pay-per-click, for Google AdWords. So we do a lot of that for small businesses and car dealers.
Yeah. He's like being modest right now.
Oh, is that right? Okay. So
He's
here you go. Here you go, Flavor.
so
Hype
good
him up. Hype him up. What's
And
up?
like, yeah, I can be your hype man right now.
Yeah.
Okay? I've actually seen him build computers like from scratch.
So you all up
Who
in it.
does that?
You all up in it.
Jason.
Wow. So you do the hardware and the software.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I started with hardware
Yeah.
back in the 80s, sometime like 86,
Back in the
87.
80s.
Back in the
You see
80s,
that?
exactly. You're OG then, huh?
I don't need them knowing how old,
bit.
that's, never mind.
I mean, I shake the glaze off
What is it
earlier.
that got you? What is it that got you into this sort of thing?
Oh, my dad was always into tech. You know, he did a lot of phone systems and got me my first computer, like older one to put together back. It was like 86, 87, something like that. And it started there. You know, start with that. And remember the old like 8-inch, 8.5 floppy disks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
that were actually floppy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
the real
same.
floppy
Yeah.
ones. You know, for the
Them things, right.
for the 3 1/4.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, exactly.
they so I used to write a bunch of programs for that. So that was like my first intro into, you know, programming. I would just stick the disk in and, you know, figure out all the math behind it, the ones and zeros, you know.
What was the size of that storage on those things?
Oh God, about a meg.
A meg. That joint was pitiful.
Yeah.
But
Considering
that-
how
but that's
much
what-
space.
But that's
we've
part of the
come a
point. I
long
mean, yo,
way.
the rapid development of technology in our society,
That
right?
is
But yo,
good.
that joint is moving very quickly.
Very quickly.
Which is really one of the things we want to talk about today. You know, if we don't catch up, we're gonna get left.
Absolutely.
So how can, from your assessment, right, the people you work with, what do you see as the potential for Black communities to become technological producers instead of just consumers?
Yes.
Well, it's going to start.
Sorry.
No problem. So there's a lot of opportunity for us, you know. Right now we're kind of behind the 8 ball educationally. You know, especially in, you know, like Philly School District, for example. You know, if you go outside the city into the outlying counties, you know, you have these huge elementary schools that are like the size of, you know, Philly Community College.
Yeah.
You know, and inside those schools, they have technology programs, you know, they're teaching coding and, you know, everything that I learned 30 years ago, like to kids, you know, 5, 6 years old, you know, starting early.
Yeah.
You know, Philly School District, on the other hand, not to call them out, but, you know, it's just
It's
it's a money
okay.
They
thing.
You
deserve
can
to be
call them
called
out.
out, so
You
go
know,
ahead.
It's fine.
Mhm.
You know, it's really a money thing. You know, they're not financed, you know, the way they should be.
Yeah.
And the school districts themselves, they're fighting for it. You know, they know what they need to do, and they're trying. You know, but it's up to the people in charge. You know, so
Yeah.
I can't blame the district so much as the people who are actually running the city. But you know, inside these schools, they're, you know, the opportunities are not there for a lot of inner-city youth right now. You know, they get a lot of hand-me-down computers,
Yeah.
and, you know,
Very true.
instructionally, you know, the instructors, you know, they don't have a lot of people to actually teach them,
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
you know, the foundations of coding. You know, that's really where people need to start.
And Amari and I were talking off camera too, because one of the things we were talking about was the fact that children, you know, when they're younger, are more adept to learn things like coding because the way it functions in our brains is a lot like language. And, you know, that's another thing that bothers me about, you know, things stateside. Most schools don't even teach language until high school or middle school, depending on what school you go to. So we're waiting until it's not as easy for us to retain the information to actually teach it. And most of the people that are being taught coding and things like that are out in these suburban schools and, you know,
Right.
places where people's parents have more money, so they have more access to better technology, better computers, better equipment. And, you know, it does a real disservice for our kids in particular, especially if you're in, you know, an inner city school and they don't have the funds or the means or even the wherewithal to know that this is something that should be taught. And I think it should be taught.
Definitely so.
You're totally right there, because, you know, like personally, you know, when I was younger, learning languages like C+ and HTML, you know, the basic, were easy,
Yeah.
you know, and now the more I get into server tech and everything else, you know, now I run servers and all, the new stuff is, you know, I learn it, but it takes me, you
But
know,
it's
just that
more
much
difficult.
longer
Yeah.
to learn the language now than it would have had I started with the server side stuff 20 years ago.
Right.
Well, we want to definitely get more into that, but we have to take a break. But we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
We're back on 28 Days and Beyond with Jason Barbour. So break it down for the folks, right? Why is a technological education important?
All right, so, you know, when people think technology, they go right for cell phones or, you know, electronics. When you really break it down, technology started thousands of years ago. You know, the first tech was sparking the first flame, you know, figuring out fire, and then figuring out, you know, crafting a wheel. So the people that did that, you know, they were on top, you know. Take Romans, for example. There's so much tech that was created there. In Africa, there's so many different technologies created there that they just weren't credited for. And
Here on 28 Days.
The people that really crafted that technology and understood it are the ones that really took over. So for us, getting into the basic understanding of the various technologies out there electronically will help us to, really to make our own. You got to understand it to make your own. And we need to get beyond just using other people's technologies and to, creating our own. And there's so many different applications, from basic, quality of life, technology to, to entertainment. So it's just a matter of just leveraging the different techs out there to really just take us to that next level.
One of the things that comes to mind a lot of times when we're talking about technology, especially within this conversation, is that there's often this misconception as it pertains to technology that we aren't necessarily interested in these things. Or I don't know if you've had any experiences where maybe you walk into a room and you start talking tech and people, their heads do 360s because they're not expecting you to be
They're not expecting to be an OG in this
basically, they're not expecting for you to walk in the door and be like, this is what I've been doing my whole life.
Right.
I've walked into consultations before, when I was selling my services, before I had people doing it for me. Where they take a look at me and they're not expecting the amount of knowledge I have to really come out and to be useful for what they're doing. A lot of people I'll take the phone consult first, and they hear me talk, and then my voice doesn't necessarily go with my appearance. So when I walk in there, it's like, oh, okay. And then, it's easy to overcome for me because, once you start dropping actual knowledge and figuring out how that knowledge helps them out,
let it down easy. Don't let
start
it down
listening.
easy.
So it took some time, but, it's become kind of just a second nature to lower people's defenses and get them to hear me.
So one of the things that I've wanted to ask a technological person is the Jetsons. Yo, what? Now everything has come true except the flying cars, which actually they have flying cars. They're just not consumer
they're just not
ready
on the market.
But what I think is so fascinating to me is that somebody is envisioning the future, right? Somebody is envisioning 40 years from now. When will we sort of step up and say that not only we're going to envision it, we're actually going to make it happen?
Take part in it.
Ooh.
I mean, obviously that's not
so
me.
There's so many obstacles there, governmentally,
Right.
It's the current government, for example. I don't see that happening during this administration. Jetsons, I love that show. So there's a lot of tech on there. Like I said, the flying cars. We can do it now. It's just a matter of should we, So I got into a fender bender tonight.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that person that hit my bumper driving a flying car.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of ethical concerns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting there reading a book to my kids, and boom, Jetson's car flies through the window.
Right,
so
right.
So there's a lot of stuff there, but it's lost my train of thought there. The should we's. There's so many different ways to think about that,
Well, some people are already using tech, I think, for things that they shouldn't, but I feel like that's almost a conversation for another day, and I'm trying to keep this as PG as I can, but...
A huge chunk of my day is spent cleaning up, messes from people that are using tech maliciously.
Yeah.
Breaking into people's systems.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's,
the
ethical aspect of it is, it's...
We're going to have to have you back for that conversation.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll maybe take some classes, you know, off camera to learn some more.
Got to get my technological weight
Yeah,
up for sure.
put our toes in it to try to learn some more.
That's what's up.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
And we're back on 28 Days and Beyond.
Yes, we are back.
Yep.
What did you learn about technology, Amari?
I gotta do something.
You gotta do something.
I'm gonna get left behind.
Well, I don't want you to get left behind.
For real. One of the things I think is extremely important is how dependent we are on, I don't know, if my computer goes down, I gotta call somebody.
You know what? It's crazy too because so many people I've had this conversation with, and I have about maybe like 6 or 7 numbers that are just ingrained in my brain.
I know.
And they're like my core people, but everybody else is kind of like, eh.
And when did you learn those numbers?
Some of them I learned when I was younger, you know. A lot of them, it's been over like probably like the last 10 or 15 years.
I could still tell you 9739231. Oh, wait,
you just giving out people's numbers and stuff.
But I'm saying like, but that to me is amazing. Now there's a lot of debate around, is the facility with which we can access all of this information, is it actually weakening our brains? Are we getting dumbed down because we don't have to actually retain information? We can just be like, why do I need to know that I could Google it at any time? Right?
Do you watch Black Mirror?
Every once in a while. It's a little slow for me.
Did you see, well, then you probably didn't see the episode. There was an episode that had to do with technology.
Right.
And basically in this episode, you could have something implanted into your neck.
And you get the vision.
And you could just,
and you could look at it on the TV screen.
Everything that's ever happened to you. I was like,
crazy.
What?
That joint was crazy.
And then I started thinking, do I want to remember everything?
Hey, well, that's another conversation for another time. But I do think, the fact is this. I think one of the great points that Jason made was technology isn't just phones. Technology is a hammer. Technology is a chair. It's a wheel, right? It's all those basic things.
It's shoes.
Now, what exactly is the sort of contribution that high heels are supposed to have to society?
They make your legs look fantastic.
Okay, on to what I was saying.
Yes, continue.
So the point is that that technology within our society, particularly digital and electronic technology, that is without a doubt it is the current wave, it's the wave of the future. Do we got our surfboards? Is what I'm trying to find out. Are we ready?
Have you ever tried the not the are they hoverboards? Not the ones that elevate, like that you're elevated like off the ground, but the ones that you can just roll on.
With the 2 wheels?
Yeah.
That be blowing up all the time?
Well, yeah, but they were fun before they started blowing up.
I've never been on one, no.
They're so much fun.
I mean, they don't really go much faster than you can walk.
It doesn't matter.
But you look cool while you're doing it.
Yes.
You're just sliding into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I say all that to say, I don't know if we'll have floating cars like the Jeffersons. Like the Jetsons. The Jeffersons. Moving on up. I'm sorry. Right. I don't know if we'll have floating cars like the Jetsons in, the next decade or so. But, every new phone is like,
it's closer. I mean, if you let Elon Musk have his way, you just might. This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.